All right, so cool. Let's get into it. So PulseChain, here we get into it. We're going to have a quick look at the ecosystem that's coming. And this is going to be epic, right? So we're going to be landing. Imagine crypto is going to have suddenly PulseChain is going to change DeFi, right? PulseChain is going to make a DeFi safer. It's going to offer so many quality profit dApps out there. It's going to give a lot of them have profit sharing. Really is going to be a transformational. So really PulseChain will transform DeFi. There is, rubbishy DeFi out on other chains, BSC and other places, Tron and stuff like that. But it's going to, PulseChain is going to offer this really safe haven, this quality place. Now, obviously, there's a lot of education involved with that. A lot of communities and stuff like that has to go to support that. But it's going to be really, really powerful. It really is creating that own your keys, your coins, get all the stuff that's on centralized stuff, but you can get it on the DeFi system. And this is taking the market by storm, right? There's a lot of big YouTubers, big influencers that do margin trading, centralized exchanges, and they reap the rewards of that. You wonder why a lot of these guys know a lot of this stuff, right? They know it all. They've been around for years. The reason why they don't talk about certain things in DeFi and other stuff is because they don't make money that way, right? Some of them are like that. Some of them are changing their mind. Some of them are going, Terra Luna was too much, FTX was too much. They're changing their mind. There's a bit of that going on. And of course, we see that to some degree with certain influencers. Now, there's sometimes a different double edge on that. But the fact is that PulseChain is above all that, right? But PulseChain is above all that. It's really going to transform the DeFi space, and it's going to expand very fast, and it's going to take a lot of people by surprise. It's going to be very exciting. Now, we do definitely know that some of the big YouTubers have also, sacrificed for these projects, and of course, they're going to end up shilling these. And of course, at least they'll be shilling something that's really good, right? It's going to be transforming DeFi, and I cannot, understate that theme that is going to play out with PulseChain. Really is going to take a lot of people by surprise. All right, so we've got we're flashbacking here. We're going back into the past. Here we are on the PulseChain sacrifice here, and you can see the old fixed number that they had here, $670 million here for the PulseChain. And of course, you see the leaderboard in here with all the big whales like the Hex God Whale, Overwatch, Rack and Rochelle, and people like that in here with all the wallets. And of course, you can see the fact that we had I'm not sure if they had the number on here. Actually, I think they do. Let me have a look down here. The numbers on here, 41,810 wallets that were on here. Obviously, it doesn't include syndications that were involved as well, where you sacrifice through one wallet. We also see this was a big deal, right? So that's not many people. At the time, it seemed like a decent amount of people. Normally projects that get 20,000 accounts are normally a decent, small project. On the larger side, maybe a small project. But that's how big it was. If you get 20,000 wallets in your project, that's kind of cool, right? But this is 41,000. It's kind of almost like two decent sized projects. So it's really not that a lot if you think about it. And this is where big demand's going to come and play, right? So this is just the wallets. Obviously, there's a volume game in here. Obviously, the amount of pulse that all these wallets will be getting. There's a bit of a volume game there. And of course, you can see the top wallets. I'm not sure let me just remind myself of these transactions here. So you can see estimated SAC points. Obviously, there's not the actual SAC points, but it's estimated, and you can see all just for the top wallet here, the Overwatch one here, and you can see all the points that are expected to get there. So it's going to be pretty fascinating to see that. Then we had that was from July last year. July that we had 21. I mean, and of course, then we had PulseX in 21. At the end there was about the 29th of December 21. We had the PulseX start as well. And of course, 2022 was pretty vibrant. And we ended up, this says 1 billion and 28. I think we were closer to 1.1 billion on this, but this is the number in there. And that's how many wallets. So we had about 42,000 wallets in the previous one. But in here, you can see that we had 136,000. Now there's a few differences in the cross-chain numbers on here. But it's a ballpark number, 136,000, and obviously there was more syndicates here in the PulseX sacrifice as well, and both of them were supposed to officially finish around about the 4th or 5th. I think it was the 5th of April there, 2022. So that's kind of where we had there. So you can see how we grew from like 42,000. Now we've got 136,000 approximately, ignoring the little separations there with some chain stuff there. Amazing growth, right? Amazing growth. So that's kind of, you see this evolution, it's pretty massive. And of course, we see the growth in the bear market of Hex in terms of the number of stakers and people involved has just grown dramatically. Crypto Copy did a nice little video. We've done some differences between the staker apps as well on this channel that show how much growth we've had in the bear market in terms of number of users, which is pretty crazy. But one of the big things that we also saw was Richard Hart. So Richard Hart posted obviously the PulseChain staking launchpad here, and of course this was super bullish. But one of the things that really came out of this, besides seeing the front end, was the fact that he had 292,000 views on this. Now I pointed this out on a little short that I did a couple of days ago when we hit 400,000, but here we are almost at 500,000, which is pretty cool. And that's a nothing burger, right? You can see when PulseChain launches that this will probably be in the multi-millions, probably 2-3 million views is what we might end up getting, right, as the virality spreads around. So that's kind of cool with this. And that just shows you the growth that we got. So 42,000 wallets of PulseChain sacrifice. And then we had all these people coming to PulseX. And of course, we're up at this, 136,000, 140,000. Obviously, it's not all the chains in there. But you can see that growth. It's just massive, massive, massive. So over 3.5x growth there. And of course, a lot of people come into PulseX going, oh, I missed PulseChain sacrifice. I want to get into PulseX. Now, we heard yesterday somebody say, I was on Discord, I think it was. I missed the PulseX sacrifice, but I got into Pulse, which is, don't often hear that as much. Normally it's I missed the PulseChain one. But it's 3.5x growth. We've had all this growth in Hex. You can see the amount of views that Richard Hart's getting on his Twitter tweets there with this. And this is just a teaser. And so you can sort of see the amount of energy that's building up for PulseChain. When we're in the bear market, obviously it's a little bit depressing. The bear market, no one loves bear markets unless you're buying the bottom. And of course, people were like, oh, people had all disappeared. And I was like, no, man, you wait. When they'll all come out of the woodwork, right? Because why do we know that? We know that because we see bull markets, right? Bull markets, people come out from everywhere, man. And of course, with all the wrecked plebs through Terra Luna and FTX and all the rest of them, we know that a lot of them are in pain and they're looking for the next big thing. And of course, the next big thing is not just a fast technical chain that might have 5,000 transactions per second or all any of that sort of stuff. They're looking for an ecosystem that's going to drop like an absolute a bomb in crypto land. And the only one that's going to be doing that is PulseChain. All right, so let's get into it. We're going to have a deep dive now into the PulseChain ecosystem. You can see that the people will come and it's going to be blow some minds, and that the market needs it. The market needs something like this, and the timing couldn't be better. PulseChain has been amplified from what happened during the bear market last year. It was really harsh, and of course, it's going to be fun to see it all play out and the timing. So let's get into the PulseChain ecosystem. And let's have a look here. So we've got PulseChain, PulseGains. Now, obviously, we're going to be doing the proof of stake, which is kind of exciting. We've gone through that on this channel with trying to outline the consensus and execution layers, just get those basic concepts in there. Talking about Geth and Aragon and Prism and Lighthouse and the changes they're making there for the trillions of Pulse instead of millions of Ethereum. So we've gone through all that sort of stuff. But it's going to be pretty cool. So what we're going to have, staking. We found out one of the cool drops from the conference was that we're going to have 32 million pulses required. And that's a bullish thing, right? So we've just gone through the fact that we might have on PulseChain maybe something like 12.5, 13 trillion in the public hands. So we're excluding the sacrifice accounts. And for PulseX, probably, if we add the AMM bot on top of that, maybe 1 to 3 trillion. So we're getting up there around 15.5, 16 trillion. We're probably on PulseX somewhere, give or take, in the public hands, maybe around about 16.5 trillion, somewhere in that ballpark. It's kind of where we have these numbers at this stage. Now, obviously, we'll wait for final numbers. That's kind of where we expect from sacrifices. And of course, we're going to have staking, right? So you can imagine that number, that volume of Pulse, let's say around 12.5, 13 trillion. Then you divide that by the amount of Pulse, 32 million. You're only going to get maybe 400,000 or 500,000 stakers or something potentially that could stake. Of course, that's not going to happen, but we should expect to see some ramp up, maybe a couple of percent ramping up. Could get quite high, could get up to 20% or so. However, PulseChain is a bit different from Ethereum, I think, because we're going to have a lot of competitive dApps that are going to attract people's Pulse. So there will be a yield competition going on there. And of course, we'll have to find out how much in the block. We know in ETH, we're getting about 700 ETH in the blocks per day. And of course, we need to know what the reward's going to be in PulseChain and so forth, and we can start sort of working out what the yield were. So that yield in terms of reward times the price of PulseChain, it's going to be really, really incredible to see that. So if you have your costs when you're staking and then you see the price go up, so the price function is going to be massive for the yield. So it's going to probably make staking a bit more competitive, possibly. Although I think that will be fulfilling, right? The higher the yield, the more Pulse goes into the platform for staking as validators. So it's going to be pretty interesting. Also think we're going to probably see some innovation in the space for staking as well, particularly for people that are less than 32 million. They want to run their own validator, things like that. We might see some innovation in that space as well, which will be pretty fast, happening pretty fast, I guess. So that's kind of cool. Cost, of course, we obviously Pulse is going to ramp up from a lower price, so it should be pretty cost competitive. The speed, of course, we were looking at 3-second blocks, probably looking at 10-second blocks, maybe 12-second blocks. We possibly could get some enhancements that lower it. We will see from the team where that ends up. Future-proofed, of course. We're going to get the EIEP upgrades, and that's going to be bullish. The first one coming up, of course, Shanghai upgrade with the ETH withdrawals. It looks like the ETH team is majorly focused on that. They got rid of all the other stuff pretty much, and they want to deliver that expectation. So that's kind of cool. I like that simplification as well. So future-proof, we're going to get all the upgrades. It's kind of cool. The devs have indicated, KDP mentioned that she had talked to one of the devs, which is pretty cool, and indicated that this was optionality. They could upgrade this anytime. So that's kind of cool to get the confirmation. Net deflationary, obviously running similar profiles with a block reward and, of course, the burn mechanisms of ETH, having that, in our fork, obviously, of ETH proof of stake, is that instead of having our deflationary before that, we had 0.25. The expectation at the moment is that, we'll have the sort of similar block activity possibly. Obviously, we've got to ramp up congestion in the chain. I actually think it's going to happen faster than people think with the congestion. But anyway, we're going to have that. And then, of course, then have the burning mechanism. So we kind of put it in the net deflationary category at the moment. Now, that's a give or take, plus or minus, right? So just to take that with what it's worth at the stage. That's some of the stuff with PulseChain. And obviously, we're going to be having the teams working on all those code updates, testing their changes, scaling the numbers to trillions rather than millions and things like that. So we've got all that stuff playing out there at the moment. Now, obviously, we saw the staking front end from Richard. It's kind of a neat validator, become a validator staking front end there. We can see some of their test network stuff on private test network there. Private V3 test network is kind of cool. And that's really neat. And, of course, we're going to expect to have a block explorer as well, right? So that is the other side of things there. So that's kind of cool on that one. Now, obviously, moving forward, we're still going to have this narrative has not changed. Some people try to say this narrative's changed. It hasn't changed. We've got more stuff on Ethereum than ever. And so we're still going to have the biggest deal. We've got more wallets and more tokens, more smart contracts, more 721s, more 1155s, all that sort of stuff. There's more 721s. They're all there. So we've got the biggest airdrop as well. And we're going to have the AMM bot liquidity, which people forget about often. People that are just not close enough up to the know. We're going to have that setting up liquidity pools, right? Harvesting the ETH pairs and setting up liquidity pools, going across as many of the dexes as possible to do that. From Uniswap to SushiSwap and others. And of course, that's going to still look to try and build up this massive liquidity pool, lock in that LP as well. That's going to be pretty cool. And then, of course, after that, we have people coming for their copies. But of course, the ecosystem is going to be so flourishing that people may not want to leave, right? That's the old threat is that if you give all these people these airdrops, other people put up their capital and you have the exit liquidity, right? That's always the fear. But of course, if the ecosystem is so powerful, cheap, faster, and of course, but has flourishing DeFi on it, that people want to participate, right? So they don't leave. So that's pretty much it. So that's kind of there. We've got PulseX, and of course, we've got the incentive token. So PulseX there. Now, PulseX, obviously, we talked about net deflationary. PulseX there, buy and burn deflationary. And of course, this gives us the idea that PulseX it was awesome with the buy and burn. So $1 billion of buy and burn of tradable volume per day, $700,000 of buy and burn. That is amazing. And of course, it is deflationary. So particularly the first couple of years, as the price of PulseX goes, it's going to be absolutely incredible to see this. And I think this token, even as good as it was before, people were loving it. It's got re-rated on the upside again. So it's pretty exciting. Obviously, the incentive token. A lot of people underplay the incentive token as well. But if you've seen liquidity pools set up with incentive tokens, Polygon and other chains like that, if you come to mind, you can see that particularly the first 3-6 months, these are super bullish. We have all the big liquidity providers come over pretty fast and they want to get this token. We also have speculators get in the house as well. They want this token as well, speculating on the liquidity. So it's kind of a chicken and an egg thing. They keep coming over and, of course, building on the AMM liquidity pools as well. Obviously, we'll get non-ETH pools set up as well, so that's kind of cool on that one. And yes, it does have a deflationary mechanism. I'm not sure if we're aware of what that does look like, but the fact that we have a lot of supply, I'm not sure whether it's incremental or if it's more of a curve shape like a log function. So we'll find out, see how that, I gather it's going to be some sort of step down. We'll see what that looks like. I haven't heard much about that. So yeah, we're going to have users coming, and we want users, right? And of course, we're going to have liquidity and yield from that as well. I think they're potentially going to do pretty well, at least for the period of time. And if PulseChain flourishes, PulseX flourishes as we expect it to, then you may see this do pretty well over time, especially with the deflationary emission curve and more speculators and holders coming in. It's going to be interesting to see that play out. But I've definitely seen plenty of examples of that being pretty popular, but they didn't have the flourishing ecosystem that PulseChain does to substantiate that for a sustainable period of time. So it's going to be fun to see that. Obviously, we've got Hex in the go as well. We're going to have Hex on PulseChain, or PHEX as people originally called it. Obviously, this is going to become the dominant Hex. Why is it going to become the dominant Hex? Because PulseChain is Richard Hart's chain, right? He's the founder of this chain. Now, we're going to have, in my view, two flourishing chains. Obviously, Ethereum is going nowhere. It's still going to be super valuable. It's creating a lot of that proof, that future-proofed EIP value add. And, of course, it's going nowhere, right? It's going nowhere. So we're going to potentially have two valuable tokens on both chains. There may be some volatility at the beginning. Some of the retail plays, maybe some of the larger holders do try to exit sell for Hex on Pulse. And we may get to see some of that behavior. But I imagine that we're probably going to end up with two pretty solid liquidity pools tying up Hex and Pulse, Hex on PulseChain and Hex on Ethereum, help tying that up through the liquidity bridges there as well. So we may very well see that. Richard has indicated that in the past. And if should we see that manifest, then that could be two chains where both of them are flourishing. Both Hexes flourishing on there. It's going to be fun to watch. Now, you got to remember that people that own Hex on Ethereum, we've already washed out a lot of people. I imagine by the time we get to 2025, 2026, we're going to have another round of washing out people. Why do I say that? Because people that staked out to 2030, if the price of Hex rises, we could see, in the next bull run, we could see that, and particularly 2024, 25, we could see a lot of those people, once they get the 50%, we could see early unstaking. We've seen that consistent trend. And of course, that provides penalties to people that with the truth engine that keep their responsibilities and so forth. So there's a lot of stuff happening here. It's going to be interesting to see dynamics play out. But we already have a lot of evidence for what behavior is going on in X already. Now, the circulating supply is going to continue to reduce as well. Don't forget that's an offsetting value. It's going to continue to reduce. So it's going to be fun to see that. All right, store of value there is in play. Obviously, that's where I see Hex as appreciating store of value. Now, remember, stable coins are stable, right? They're supposed to be pegged to a dollar. They're pretty much a store of value, right? But what we're talking about when we talk about store of value is an appreciating store of value, whether that comes from the yield of the product or from the price or both. That's kind of what we're seeing with the appreciating store of value. Now, obviously, that's a pretty powerful theme. And, of course, not every token that tries to be a store of value is achieved. Sometimes they can go to zero. That's got to take into account. But if you've got a good product, good design, as Hex has with the share rate, with some of the operational accounts with the OA, lower net inflation, and, of course, regulating the APY, potentially that is something we might see as well. Now, this is speculation, of course. After PulseChain, we may very well see some OA staking and APY regulation there as well, or not regulation, probably misleading there, but regulating of the APY. Now, Richard has hinted this in a live stream he did last year. Probably should pull it out, but that is kind of where we might actually see that. So kind of cool there. Maybe that's something that happens later on. So that is kind of cool. Yield price. This becomes our store value. So I still think Hex is going to be incredibly popular as people get the income effect and wealth effect from the whole PulseChain ecosystem. So that's kind of the play there. Now, obviously, we have the official bridge. If you've got a closed system, you've got PulseChain, you got PulseX. It's a closed system. You need money to flow in and out of it, right? So obviously, we've got the official bridge. We've heard Ruth Dev talking about this all the time. And of course, we've played on the original versions on this channel. Now, obviously, why is this important? Because it brings new capital in and adoption. So very, very important to have that you have new capital and adoption. And it's that's the main game. So very exciting to see that play out. And of course, this is where you get the wrap technology. You lock one token in, you wrap it and issue a wrap version on the other side, sort of a synthetic on the other side, and then you put that into trading pairs and PulseX, and you can trade that. So that's kind of where we see that playing in. And of course, it's bi-directional, goes both ways, right? There's also where we see the stable coins as well, and this is where the contentious part comes in around USD Tether, USDC. Obviously, we've seen the sacrifice amounts to be switched into DAI, obviously with some of the contagion in the market fearing there. And of course, we've seen a lot of stable coins turn into DAI token. Obviously, the preferred stable coin there by the sacrifice accounts. So that's kind of where we are at this moment. And of course, we're going to see some pretty interesting pairs play out there with the DAI and versus the USDC and USD Tether. Pretty interesting signal, if you ask me. And of course, we're going to not have a problem after 4 to 6 weeks after PulseChain launches. We will not have a problem with stable coins. We're going to have probably 4 or 5 native stable coins, and that's going to be pretty cool. At least 4. So we got at least Coast, CST, USDL from Liquid Loans, and of course BankX is likely to be out there too. And there's a 4th one as well, which we'll probably cover on another video. And of course, maybe in the future we might see the Heart Wallet as well. The only problem I have with that now is that we already have the Coast, which is going to be fiat backed, and Richard Hart has said his preference is for a fiat backed stable coin himself. We'll see whether that comes up in the future. The other side, of course, is the Heart Wallet as well. That's also there, and we're also expecting a sacrifice for that. Obviously, that would play into the Hex circulating supply, reducing that dramatically too. We'd all love that, right? We loved Maximus and Icosa. We wouldn't really love to see more sync of Hex circulating supply. Remember, it's a win-win. People that sync their Hex, they get the rewards for longer pays better, bigger pays better, earlier pays better, and of course, it's a win for the rest of us because there's more Hex off the market. And of course, Richard's #1 principle about value is the obvious one, and that is you people that buy and hold and don't sell. That's how you get higher prices. That's pretty much it. That's pretty good stuff there. All right, so that's kind of cool there. New capital adoption, very, very cool. Now, there's only one of 2 sources of new capital and adoption. So remember that. That's one of 2 is the bridges. So that's pretty cool. Now, obviously, what are other things that we have? Obviously, we're talking about other stable coins here. So Liquid Loans, USDL. Now, we have 4 different models of stable coins, and 2 of them are the superior ones. They've shown to be superior. One of those is that we have an exogenous model. That is based on your stable coin is based on a token outside of your platform. Unlike Terra Luna, which was an endogenous model, where the stable coin was based on the endogenous main token in terms of Luna UST there. So for Liquid Loans, it is cool. It's got the better model, and we know it's better because when the market's trashed, funds throw through to liquidity, and of course the stable coin went to a premium. So it was above peg of $1, about $1.03 up in that sort of range, and that was pretty cool. Now, it had volatility when it first launched, and we could very well have that at the beginning of Liquid Loans when it launches. But remember, this is not going to be the 4 to 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks after PulseChain launches, because they want to find, they've got Teller the Oracle, so they're bringing Oracle into the ecosystem. Just another pump and for PulseChain, and of course other users can use that, other dApps can use that as well. But only that, but also going to be providing this USDL stablecoin. So we could see a bit of a battle between the stablecoins, but I imagine it's going to be pretty hard to take USDL down. And of course, we'll see a lot of trading pairs with the stablecoin. Remember, it's always redeemable for $1, and of course, it's over collateralized on the platform. So it's going to be a pretty strong little system. We see that liquidity is strong in Ethereum, and so it's going to bode very, very well. And who cares about USD Tether if they don't come, support the copies over on PulseChain or any sort of try to undo any wrap version? Although I think that's going to be a bit hard to do. They can still do it, obviously on the ETH chain. That'd be pretty interesting. Obviously, the wrap versions are synthetic, so they'd have to attack the ETH side of that. So it's going to be interesting question marks over there. But that's kind of cool there. With stablecoins, obviously, we've got others, CST and BankX and others that will be coming native. And, of course, very, very cool. Now, obviously, CST is going to be fiat-backed. So people are going to be fiat-backed, which is the preferred model of Richard Hart's stable kind of thing. So that's going to be cool. And that means we've got the 2 best models. We're going to have the exogenous one with Pulse as the name. That's the main token. So that's kind of cool. And then, of course, the second one, we're going to have CST with the fiat there, which is going to be pretty cool. BankX is kind of a hybrid between like 5 or 6 different models. We're going to see how that plays out. And, of course, they're looking at multi-chain for that as well. So that's kind of one of the advantages there. We'll see. All right, so cool. Let us get into fiat. Of course, we're going to banks. We need a bank, right? So maybe if you haven't got 32 million Pulse to put in the Pulse, maybe you're a smaller sacrificer, or maybe you don't have any at all and you've got to buy it on market, which a lot of people have to do, right? As we said, there's only 42,000 here. So only 52,000 wallets. So there's a lot of people after Pulse, man. And the only way you're going to get it is some of the larger holders and some of the small retail players, particularly some of the large. We'll get some larger holders that will dump. That's going to happen without a doubt. So if you were looking for some opportunity, there will be opportunity, but it could be pretty short-lived, right? It could be pretty short-lived. There will be particular volatility at the beginning there. So that's kind of the cool there, Fiat. And of course, you'll be able to deposit tokens. Fiat is a fork of Aave, obviously one of the biggest DeFis in the space. And of course, with Compound and others. So Fiat's going to be providing that service. And of course, the bank there is going to be pretty big deal. Let me just scroll back here. Got a bit far here. So cool. We've got obviously people be able to deposit in there and borrow. And of course, they're going to have other features as well. Potentially, you could use it as different instruments like debt rate swaps, interest rate swaps, flash loans, and things like that can come out of this kind of platform. Very, very cool. But of course, you've got base interest. You can put your tokens in there, earn a yield, and of course, people can borrow and go and buy their favorite tokens. Now, the cool thing about these products is that they won't really probably be around for 4 to 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks afterwards. This is the trick. So people are going to get into PulseChain, maybe the airdrops. They're going to think it's game over. I was in the first week. We had all the activity. It was great. But they don't realize that all the leverage is coming in 4 to 8 weeks later, and that's kind of be the main game. So if they think the main game was in the first week or two of PulseChain, they are wrong because the second wave will come through, and that is the DeFi leverage. That is really what prices up assets in the markets. The big players come in, the big leverage occurs, and the big play is on. Now, we already have that in liquidity providers with the incentive token. We're already going to have that first wave. That's going to be in the first wave and keep going, right? It's going to keep going. But the second wave is this DeFi stuff. And this is what people are going to get tricked out by. They're going to go, what the heck, man? It got pumped and it dumped. And then suddenly, what the hell? Now it's appreciating in value over time. That's kind of what's going to happen there. And they'll get tricked out. So remember that. Keep that in the back of your mind. The leverage plays are coming, not straight away, but afterwards, once they got their Oracle price calls and everything like that. Now it's going to be pretty cool. Famous, of course, leverage. And don't forget Fiat. People, they have Pulse in there. People are going to be competing. PulseChain staking will be competing with that as well. So it's going to be interesting to see the yield competition go on as well. Famous, of course, is going to be a fork of GMX. Of course, decentralized margin trading, obviously an alternative to margin trading on centralized exchanges. And of course, you'll be able to do leverage with that. Now, this is super leverage, right? So if you thought banks was good, being able to borrow, imagine doing able to do leverage. And of course, I think it's up to 30x leverage. I don't recommend that. If you are going to speculate with leverage, which I don't recommend, you should not have more than 3x, right? Should not have more than 3x on leverage play. Now, we've done a few of those videos on that one, so just the way it goes. But some people are going to do it anyway, right? A bit like BNB pot, they're going to do it anyway. And of course, if you're going to do it, and that's the play. Now, the other thing, of course, also, if you think about it, is a net benefit, right? Because the people on centralized exchanges, they don't own the keys to their coins, particularly if they leave them there all the time. Smart people will go and leverage, but they'll take their coins off the exchanges. They still have risk, though. And of course, we've seen that play out before. But of course, this you own your keys to your coin, so it is a net benefit, regardless of whether they're margin trading or not. And of course, margin trading on Pulse, that people are able to borrow. They're going to borrow from liquidity pool. People that, if you're going to do margin trading, there's the other side of the coin, which is the liquidity pool. People have to offer liquidity for you to borrow that and go and buy Pulse or PulseX, whatever. And so you're going to have that in there, right? So you can provide liquidity. You don't even have to do the margin trading. You can just provide the liquidity and get locked in the contract on that side and earn the yield on that, and potentially could be pretty attractive. I think it's 60% is the benefit of the profits that are going to go to liquidity providers. 40% will go to the people that own the famous there. Now, fiat on-ramps, off-ramps, obviously this is a big deal. Obviously, Coast has been the big news lately. Coast has been like a boss with the news. So exciting. And of course, actions speak louder than words, but their words are pretty loud. They got loud words, and of course, we can see a bit of an update here from them. So they provided this a couple of hours ago. Fiat on-ramp update. Our product will be simple. Get your money onto Ethereum or PulseChain, because obviously they're launching on Ethereum first. We won't be able to victimize you via trading fees or leverage liquidation. A safe and easy way to onboard to Hex and real crypto. Now, they will have, obviously, they've got a banking partnership that's regulated, and they will have KYC for that. But you will be able to enter into US dollars via this method at this stage. Now, obviously, they're going to issue a stablecoin in future, Coast or CST, so that's going to be pretty cool as well. But very, very bullish to have this. So you see, a PulseChain ecosystem is going to have everything we need, all the best of Ethereum to be able to flourish ecosystem, all dropping, within 2 months, pretty much, and a majority of that probably earlier than later. So we've got fiat on-ramps, off-ramps. Obviously, we talked about the bridge. this is coming from within crypto, all this capital coming in and adoption coming in, but fiat on-ramps, off-ramps come from the fiat system. So we've got crypto system and fiat system all coming into PulseChain, and that's what we want, both ways. We want bi-directional, money comes in, money comes out. That's what makes it not just money come in, it does pump assets, but you want to actually get the velocity and the turnover and adoption. You need the money to be able to flow back in and out, right? So that's kind of cool there. That is on play. And of course, with the fiat on-ramp off-ramps, we see Coast, but we've also got Overwatch, Rack and Rochelle. He's been pretty quiet lately, but presumably all his business is still moving forward, just waiting for PulseChain, the regulations, SEC and stuff like that's around, so he's probably a bit more quiet. But in any case, we've got obviously based in Saudi there, doing a centralized exchange and all sorts of stuff, but really focused on fiat on-ramp, off-ramp, one of his 4 main pillars of his product launches, and that's going to be pretty bullish. Obviously, they're going to be doing other stuff, so we're going to talk about that too. We've obviously got centralized listings, so obviously Overwatch, Rack and Rochelle looking to do a centralized exchange based through the Saudi. Obviously, that potentially brings in all money and the big money, and that's going to be kind of cool too. We'll have to see question mark over how that plays out since the Rackham's been so quiet, but that is the last expectation we had. Also, a listing site is one of his 4 products as well, doing a listing site, and of course the 4th one, which I haven't mentioned, is obviously the security level product, which is already out at this stage. So it's kind of cool, government level security. Now, obviously, cross-chain swaps. We talked about the bridge capital coming in. We've talked about the fiat on-ramps, off-ramps, but obviously building on the official bridge is cross-chain swaps, and this is actually going to be a game changer. Obviously, we saw PUSD, which has still got a sacrifice open at the moment, just like Famous, that you can basically they've made a partnership with multi-chain, and of course you can have so many. They've got so many chains that you can now swap to. I think the last number I saw was 30, but it could be up to as high as 90. And of course, we also have potentially thousands of tokens tradable as well. The cool thing about this service is that it's just going to be so seamless, right? You don't have to even be an expert in crypto where you're doing, expert user where you're doing chains all the time, jumping chains, jumping bridges. You don't have to do all this stuff. You can just use a one-stop shop and it'll do all the hard work for you, from PulseChain to Ethereum, from Ethereum to some other EVM chain, etc. You can just move around. It's going to be pretty powerful. And of course, all the fees are going to go into the rewards for those that are staking the Watt token. So very powerful and a massive utility for adoption, for economic value, and of course a fundamental for PulseChain. Really, really big deal. And of course, we're probably going to have hundreds of native projects. We have something like about 130, 140 already. Now, there's varying quality in those projects. I don't want to, make you have a realistic view of those. There are various quality in those projects, just like there are on Ethereum. But the more projects that are on a chain, the more vibrant the ecosystem, regardless of how they perform. The more there are, the better. And of course, the better quality. Obviously, PulseChain's going to, all the quality ones will get priced higher. So it's your job to make sure that you're, got the probability play there, that you're in the better products. But of course, typically, the top 10, 20 are the ones that are going to be, the market's going to price up the most. So you definitely want to have a lot of those in your bags, in your portfolio. So that is kind of some of that. Now, obviously, there's a lot more with inside these native projects. They're going to add, some of them add utility of varying forms. Others are just more GameFi, light DeFi, and NFTs and things like that. So there's obviously a lot of play in NFTs, which I haven't alluded to on here. The NFT is obviously a huge market, and we've going to have at least 4 or 5 projects that are in here, like Mintra and Power City's own one there. How to Pulse got their NFT site. There's going to be plenty of those top tier, and they all look fantastic from a UI UX point of view, and they're all going to help flourish the ecosystem as well. Now, we're probably going to get a lot of, I haven't shown here, we're going to get a lot of capitulation from other providers that will come on. Once they see the value of PulseChain rise up through the ranks, and particularly head towards the top, which we expect to see, they're going to come in. They'll all capitulate. They'll come in. We've seen them capitulate before in other chains. And, of course, they'll come and want to participate because people follow the money, right? People follow money. Binance CZ follows the money. Everyone follows the money there. And, of course, they want to, if they can control as much of the game as can, they try to do that too. A bit harder in DeFi, but that's kind of the play there. So that's kind of a flow-on effect from the awesomeness of PulseChain ecosystem there. So it's kind of cool. A lot of the forks, we had proof of work, proof of fear. They're really difficult chains, right? They launched, they forked the proof of work, kind of the old tech now. And, of course, the hardy testing, but old tech. but they lacked all the ecosystem, right? So it was very difficult to get money on and off. Withdrawals were like 24 hours to get withdrawals with the confirmations you needed. It was just terrible experience from that point of view. And the volumes have died off dramatically. We are in a bear market, but the volumes have dried off dramatically. And yes, we'll get into the bull market. Maybe they'll get better volumes, but they'll always have to compete with the more successful chains as they rise up through a bull market as well. People follow the money, so it's kind of a play there. That's where we are on that one. Let's get into the final one there. So what does that all mean from all these things on the left here on the ecosystem that are being built by all these top tier AAA teams like Liquid Loans, PUSD, Fiat, and others. Internet Money, of course, with their profit sharing wallet, game changer in that space. And we may end up with a heart wallet as well. Risk, we get risk management, we get leverage, we get new capital, we get adoption, and we get profit. And of course, we love that, and that bodes well for the whole ecosystem. And of course, they all flush through PulseX and any other DEX that decides to get put on PulseChain. So that's kind of cool as well. So we're going to see some competition for PulseX probably in there as well. It might be a bit more boutique, but we'll definitely see when people enter a market. If it is flourishing, they enter the game. All right, so cool. That is it. Now, obviously, coming back to Hex, what are we getting here? We've got all these derivative plays that we talked about earlier, Icosa, Hedron, Maximus, and of course, Power City Flex and others potentially that are all going to optimize the Hex contract. So these are dividend yield plays, and of course, they lower the gas fees as well. We may not see the gas fee, the original catalyst for Hex to end stake be so as powerful now that we're doing proof of stake. But of course, the price of PulseChain still has to ramp up. Just remember that the price of Pulse still has to ramp up, so it'll be relatively cheap from that point of view. But in any case, the early players in the PulseChain obviously getting positions first couple of months, first 6 months, normally accumulating positions is very powerful. And of course, you get a massive wealth effect from that. And that could play out anyway. So in any case, we're still going to have this yield optimizers. Obviously, everything on the ETH chain is getting copied over to PulseChain. So everyone's getting double bags anyway. So the wealth effect is pretty powerful. And the income effect as well is going to be great also. Now, obviously, that plays into Hex as a store of value. And so we've got PulseChain and we've got these optimized derivatives all playing into the value of Hex. That's pretty awesome, right? Pretty awesome. We've got circulating supply particularly going down, especially if we get the Heart wallet coming down and, of course, future products. Future optimizers as well for Hex, like Hedron, Maximus. It could be pretty crazy there as well. So very, very exciting future. We're obviously going to have more burning as well, more penalties, things like that, all play into the scarcity of Hex over time on both chains. So it's going to be fun to see that. So reduced supply is the global outcome there for Hex. Very, very exciting. So let's bring it home, folks. Let's bring it home. Let's kick the goal. What does this all mean? Well, there it is. It all interacts together, of course. And of course, what happens? Price pumps. Now, there's always volatility. There's always bear markets and bull markets. But we're going to see some pretty incredible price pumping. That's going to be fun to see. Now, we're going to see some surprising positions that did the sacrifice. In PulseChain and PulseX, we'll see some probably large accounts exit early. And of course, what does that mean? Volatility. It means opportunity in terms of price. It means to see some price volatility. Some of these ones with some huge bags, some of these wallets may very well dump down on a 2x or 3x, whatever they're going to do. And we will see that happen. Always happens in markets. Always happens. Despite how awesome PulseChain is going to be, we always see it in the market. So just remember that. There's always opportunities there as well. So very, very exciting. Now, obviously, to participate in this, obviously, PulseChain and PulseX is over. But there is Power City out there. If you get Watt token, they can have multiple utility businesses operating. And, of course, all earning fees and all buying Pulse. They're going to buy Pulse with those fees and give them back to their Watt stakers. So that is one of the best plays. What's another best play to get involved is obviously get dry powder ready, get it ready. Try, when PulseChain launches, try and get any big giant dips that occur. Maybe some whale gets a 3x and you decide to dump his whole bags. And there's a big dip in the chart and you pick that opportunity up. So there's always that in the house as well. Typically in the first 3 to 6 months on a main chain like this is to pick it up and get a really good position. And of course, we see with chains like Solana and stuff like that, the massive extra returns are potentially there. But of course, we have a whole big ecosystem that's all ready to go. And of course, there could be very well the timing of the financial market, the bottom of the bear could very well be close there. March, April, May is looking very good for that potential point there. Subject obviously to the way trends are going at the moment. That is where the trends are going at the moment. So it's looking pretty good. All right, so that is pretty much it. Let's quick look here. Finally, to wrap this up, this is the final wrap up here. But what's more bullish than one of the dev teams saying, it's really close. and we got this on the 13th of January. The testnet he's talking about in particular, not mainnet, of course. We're talking about mainnet, but in terms of testnet, which is a bullish sign, it is going to be the proof of stake version. Some people like to call it V1 because it's the first proof of stake, but it's going to be pretty cool to see that. And he says it's really close on the 13th. Very exciting. On New Year's Day, Breed Tep there from the team said that PulseChain is going to change the world, and Richard Hart's going to change the world, something like that. That's pretty bullish too. But I think that's a really good place to finish on one of the dev team guys. Very exciting. So I hope you guys enjoyed that.